You know that awesome feeling when a friend that you really love introduces you to other cool-ass people? Well, that's exactly how I built the relationship with my guest today. And this is a continuation of the mini-series that I'm calling The Way Beneath the Work in this Out of Step podcast. And we're exploring people who I perceive to kind of live on the edges of this ecosystem of supporting other humans. The coaches, the guides, the mentors, facilitators, healers who aren't doing it in typical fashion. This particular mini-series is about people who I've seen really walk their own path and have really discovered their deeper sense of purpose within this world. So I was introduced to Kathleen Funk by my very witchy and wonderful friend Annie Asher. And it seemed like every time that Annie would talk to us about supporting people on healing journeys, Kathleen's name would just come up naturally. And so both Michelle, my wife, and I started to follow Kathleen on Instagram. And pretty instantly, I was like, yeah, I just need to be homies with this person because she's cool as shit. You're going to hear a lot more about Kathleen's journey as we go through the podcast. But just to give you a little bit of foundation, she's a fourth generation healer with a doctorate in traditional Chinese medicine. She had an integrative medicine clinic for over 12 years. And then she started to feel this call to take a sabbatical and work with visual art and also starting to do more energy work. She has her brand, acupuncture, which is actually her Instagram handle. How fucking cool is that? And she has a Patreon community called Don't Call It Woo. And both are really with the purpose of exploring traditional healing, decolonizing wellness, and art as a form of liberation. I would highly recommend that you check out her Instagram because she shares these energy maps that she does with her clients, which are these intuitive drawings of the subtle energy body, and it creates an actual visual reflection of the subtle energy body. It's really super fascinating. She also shares her weekly weather reports of Qi flow. And this is a combination of Western astrology and Bazi, which is the Chinese astrology. I'll make sure that all these links are in the show notes for you because I'm pretty sure as we drop into this conversation, a lot of you are going to want to connect with my friend here. So let's go meet my amazing homie, Kathleen Funk. All right, Kathleen, I'm so excited to jump in with you. So I told you before, here's the big question that's coming. If you are being your truest, highest self, what do you look like? What do you sound like? And what do you feel like?
Oh, I love this. I really love this. First of all, thank you so much for asking a question that just chucks us into the deep end because anything from here is yeah, whatever. This is coming from a place where I don't want this to sound arrogant, but my truest highest self, I feel fucking powerful. I feel fucking aligned. I feel connected to every fucking thing. And that's the feeling that I get when I'm in that meditative state where I do feel that deep connection with everything. It's power, not in the very yang domination sense, but it feels like a natural sort of organic flow where I feel incredibly connected to the vitality of life. I feel incredibly connected to the shadow of life at the same time. And it feels powerful because I feel like I can experience both of those things at once and still be able to hold it and not be heavy from it, if that makes sense. That's the best way that I can describe that.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I love that you said being able to hold both, the with the shadow, because
Yeah.
I think that can be challenging to see that there's both in the same moment.
Totally, because it's like it's kind of, I'll gently say this, it's kind of like a cop out when you're like, oh yes, I can hold everything, but not that. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Way to throw in a meatloaf quote
Thank
right
you.
off the
Thank you.
bat. Come
Meatloaf
on.
anytime. Bat out of hell. Let's
Oh
go.
my gosh. Awesome. Well, the reason I really wanted to have you as part of this first conversations in this series is I really want people to understand the journey that it takes to truly find that sense of purpose and like that real kind of quote niche. Bill Plotkin, an author that I just really love, he calls it our eco niche. It's like that place that only we can really hold as the individual. And I've gotten to know you over these past couple years because of our mutual friend Annie, and I've really seen you take this really cool path from traditional Chinese medicine into this space of, I love how you say, don't call it woo. And so that's what I really want to jump into with you today, is really understanding this journey that you've been on so that the people listening can also reflect on their own journey. And yeah, so could you maybe just start us off with like a big picture, just, yeah, a big picture of like what this journey has looked like for you?
Oh, have we have we reached the destination yet? Is the question.
That's a great question. Up
Um,
until now, I guess we should go to.
right, right. It's been a long and winding road, and I say that kind of like, it's cliche, but the truth is that like it's never really a straight line. And I think that there's a misunderstanding about like, oh, once I figure this out, then everything else will fall into place. Like I just got to figure out this one thing. And I think that that is, um, it's incredibly simplistic, and it is kind of helpful when you're trying to package something, like when you're trying to package a product. But we are organic beings. We are multi-dimensional beings that are constantly shifting and are constantly changing in the way that we relate to our craft and to other folks. And so for me, it's always been somewhat of a moving target. Like I've in every single moment, I'm finding that alignment with, does this resonate with me? Is this right with my spirit? How can I grow closer towards that alignment in every single thing that I do? And when I'm able to take this huge task of like finding my niche, and like what I'm supposed to be in this world specifically, that's just for me, that only I can do for other folks. Um, it can feel so overwhelming. But if I'm able to go inside and genuinely go like, is this me? Do I know where my edges are? And can I push those edges? Can I grow more in alignment within that, towards that? That I would say that that's my niche. And I know from the outside in, it's looked somewhat different in every stage of my life and my career, and we can get into that later. But I'd love to hear about how you how you encounter the niche dilemma, because yeah, you and I have spoken about like branding and all of that, and everybody's always like, only something that you can do. What's your why, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like,
Yeah. I really appreciate what you said, that it is a long and winding road. And especially to me, what I heard from you is like actually letting go of the need to know so perfectly, like having to fit it into such a tight and perfect little box and package. Because I can super relate to that. Um, Early on in my career too, just even as I first started being a life coach, way back in 2009, 2010, that was very much the push, was like, hey, you have to know exactly who your target market is, and you have to like brand yourself to this exact niche. I was like, how the fuck do I know? Like, I just started doing this. I have no idea who I am, you know? And so I do really see I feel the closest to what I would call sort of that eco niche, that like true niche today. But the reason I think I am so close to it today is because I finally let go of needing to know that answer. And it started to happen naturally, you know, just like you said, really trusting more with, am I aligned with source? Am I aligned with spirit? And if I am, then automatically I think that is going to place me into that space, right?
100%. Yeah. And I would argue that a lot of coaches or branding and marketing folks are doing it the wrong way around, because a lot of times we are told to figure out who we're talking to first. But how are we supposed to know who we want to talk to if we don't know what our voice is yet? And that takes some time. That takes a lot of time to develop. And it takes, honestly, a lot of like reaching your quote unquote niche market and then realizing that isn't what you want. Um, and that takes a lot of time and error. And the truth is too is that you might find your niche market and you might find that, oh, I've either outgrown this, or I'd like to shift, or these people are changing along with me, and I too have to keep up with this growth along with them, and shift what I care about, what I align myself to as well.
Yeah. And absolutely, because I look back at different phases within my life and what I did feel clear about in those moments. And it was like, oh, this is who I am. This is what I'm
Mhm.
supposed to be doing. It did feel really like really aligned and really clear at that moment. But then 6 months, a year later, I might start feeling that itch of like, oh, something's not right here. But something that you said, even just as we were chatting before we got on the call today, was that that can be a little bit dangerous because we are taught so much that we have to like find that niche and like really just stick to it. Like that's the thing we have to do now. And I feel really fortunate that I think it's a little bit of my old punk rock heart where I'm just like, screw that. Like I'm going to do what I want to do. And again, I think that that's part of the reason I have been able to get to this place today where I feel like I'm really living in a sense of purpose, because I'm not so tied to it has to be this perfect way or it has to be this certain thing, because it changes over time.
I love that. I love hearing your perspective on this, especially like seeing um, the content that you share. And I know that it can be really challenging for folks too to understand, like, are you a hairstylist? Are you a life coach? And yeah, why not both, right? Like you're all of these things. You're an artist, you're a creative, you're a space holder and an educator. And that I think is more organic to who we are as beings. We're never really just one thing. I think it's incredibly limiting to figure out your one niche and then lock in for the next 30 years. And I would, this is my personal theory, and I might be wrong, but I think that a lot of that has to do with the old school sort of marketing, because it took a lot of time to disseminate um, identity, brand, and recognition with folks. And so once you lock into it, you can't just rebrand every 3 months because nobody's going to know who you are. But the beauty of technology and our interconnectedness is as terrible and beautiful as it is now. Um, we are able to make those changes on the fly. Like we don't have to give up a whole year of marketing budget to be able to go, actually, I would like to click into this particular niche instead. And I want to like refine, or shift it this way during another season of my life or the world, you know? And I find that to be really, really cool. And what I don't fully understand, and I don't know if you've encountered this too, is that a lot of people feel guilty about doing that. Like when they change and when they shift, because they feel like they're disappointing themselves, or like disappointing other people, or they're being inconsistent. But, or like maybe they might label it as something that's like too ADD. But it's what you're supposed to do as a human being. You get feedback, and the feedback that we get from the world is so much faster now. And like, shouldn't we also react to it in a similar pace?
I'm just going to pre-thank you for on behalf of like so many listeners right now that probably just took like a couple deep breaths over a couple of things that you just shared. Because one, even though I don't really live within the hair industry as like a hairdresser anymore, or like a hairdressing educator, I know that a lot of people listening to this are still within that industry, because that was my industry for over 20 years. But I know that there's a lot of them listening that the first thing that you said was such a great thing to hear, which is, can you be the hairdresser and the coach, the hairdresser and the mentor, the hairdresser and the educator? And the answer is absolutely yes. And I think old school mindset would have said, well, if you're both, then are you really good at anything? And I think that's minimizing the potential of humans. Like, yes, we can be fantastic at both things at once. In fact, they can feed each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part that I bet a lot of you listening were probably like, yes, Kathleen, thank you, is this bit of permission to change without that sense of guilt, without that sense of shame. I was just with a good friend of mine last night, Corey, and he had a real passion he wanted to support men specifically. And so he started a company that did specifically men's work. And for this past year, he has worked his ass off. Like, he has built this beautiful website, like built these multiple communities, like all this back end. But to your point, because we're in this technological world, he was able to do it himself. And all of those foundations are already built. And what happened is he realized just recently that actually men, that's not supposed to be his specific niche. Like, he actually found out that he's like, my real calling is to talk to a wider audience, and more specifically about these topics of like confidence and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so last night he told us, he's like, I'm closing down on the men's work stuff and I'm switching gears. But here's the rad thing, Kathleen. Everything that he built, because of the way the technology works, he can just basically switch out the cover and it's already done. Like, he can switch gears to this whole new topic without having to rebuild an entire marketing strategy, an entire platform. And so I love what you shared. It's like, this is a really beautiful thing about our current day is I never thought of it like that either, because you're right. 10 years ago, I would have had to pay someone a lot of money to build like a full marketing strategy.
Yes.
And now I can just switch it overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's incredible to have these resources now. And it's incredible to be able to react to the same pace in which we are internally shifting as well. Because somebody like that who would have put all of that time, money, effort, right, into a year of that, I mean, to recoup, right, to get your your money's worth, you probably like stick with it for like 3 to 4 years at least before you decide to shift out of that and go like, okay, let's start expanding again. Um, and I find it to be so, this is the coolest part about what you just shared too about Corey's experience, because he could change the skin of the business, but he knew at his core who he is. And so regardless of, like, it doesn't matter who he's talking to, he's still providing uh, the same service. He's still providing the same message. The only thing that's shifting is who he's gently targeting it to, which is very cool.
And I do want to get to your story, but I want to ask you a question on this line of thought before we go there. What do you, because I think this is a question that's probably coming up for some people. What's the difference of bailing on something too fast because it's not working, or, the money's not starting to come in fast enough? versus being willing to let go of something maybe even pretty quickly. You know, I think this is the challenge that sometimes comes up for people is, well, am I bailing because it's not comfortable, or is this truly something that I need to shift because there's something else more powerful calling me? Do you have any
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's an energetic and cognitive component, and I do think that there's also like a business, very practical component in it too. Like on the personal level, do you believe it? Do you believe in it? Is it something that you can talk about for days on end and you don't mind being in that space? Like you love sharing it. If you don't believe in it, then you're gonna have to rethink about like then what is the niche that is actually most aligned to you, with you rather. And then on a practical level too, it's like if it's not connecting with folks and you're not seeing the the return on investment, then you have to consider like you're speaking to the wrong you're speaking to the wrong customers. You may be pricing it wrong. You might be misrepresenting yourself, or the product might not be good,
Sure.
or it might not be whole enough, or streamlined enough. And so those are absolutely practical things that you have to think about. But if you have all of those things and you're putting it in and it's just not working, then that's when you have to shift. I would actually argue that most entrepreneurs and startup founders don't close up and switch gears fast enough. And that's what fucks them up in the long run.
I actually totally agree with you. And I think that there's a lot of research around that. Even from a ways back, there was this Harvard Business Press article that my old coach showed us one time, that there's sort of like that initial climb in entrepreneurship. Like you launch something, it gets some traction, things are cool. And then there's like that first kind of shake up point. And that first shake up point is really important because it's that place that people either kind of like really stick to their guns. And that can be good if it's like, hey, we know we're on the right path, like don't change. But I think often there probably is even an intuitive aspect where they're like, shit, we should probably kind of shift this way or go this way a little bit. But man, we've already just so committed to this path, we have to stick it out. And often that shake-up point is the part that things start to decline because they don't take some type of action um, during that space. So I totally agree with you.
That is so real. And thank you for putting context to that too. And it's like I say this, and yet, as an entrepreneur, I'm also, I have 100% been in that situation where I'm just like, shit, it's all going to flames. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. And it's so funny because like when I think of my Patreon, don't call it woo. I I had written for it, I had created the space for it, I had set up all of this stuff to launch on Patreon, and this was like last December 2024, and the eve in which I was just gonna press push and like confirm to publish, I was just like, like I don't know if this is worth any time because like I love talking about this, I love connecting with folks, but like who's gonna give a shit about what I have to say about this? Like nobody's gonna spend any time here. And I actually walked away from it. And if it wasn't for my incredible support system and my incredible partner, Alan, if he wasn't like, "Look, you need to do this. Like, you're meant to do this. People, like, you just do it." So, like, everything could go right. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be in a position now where it's honestly been one of the greatest joys of my 2025 because I was so afraid that it was going to take up so much time and effort because I don't like half-assing things. If I commit to something, then I want to give myself fully to it. And I usually try to over-deliver when people, especially when people are exchanging um, monetary value with me. Like I'm so grateful. Um, and it was one of the greatest joys of 2025. And it's one of the things I'm so excited about 2026 too, because I suddenly found myself in this beautiful community of hundreds of folks from all over the world, from different walks of life, not just traditional Chinese medical practitioners, um, but therapists, space holders, activists, lawyers, you know, and different sorts of artists. And they're able to share, be in community, and be in cultivation with each other too. And on a personal level, like especially with all the things that is happening in this world right now, like that little sliver of humanity, and that light that all those wonderful folks come together for, to make the world a little bit brighter, that has given me hope in humanity. And yeah, I to think that I would have allowed my own personal fears to stop myself from doing that, like I would have missed out on so much in my life. And that's like the back and forth that we play with as entrepreneurs, right? But like we're never really gonna know. It's always gonna be trial by fire, and we got to be down with it.
I definitely can feel that too because I have a couple groups that I work with that at this point I'm so grateful for that space because of exactly what you said with
Yeah.
so much division in our world. It's so wonderful to step into spaces where the community feels so solid and so supportive and so loving.
Mhm.
It's something that if you're listening that you don't have, especially in times like this, I would highly recommend you find that for yourself, you know, and just, there's things like Meetup out there that, you know, you can go on the Meetup website and there's just things like, hey, here's a group coffee thing that you can come to. But having community during this time is super, super essential. I I do want to hear a bit of your story because one of the
Mm.
things that I've really loved watching is this journey that you've been on. Because when I first started to connect with you, you were still practicing traditional Chinese medicine, more specifically doing acupuncture. And then now I see what you're doing, and it just feels so magical and like so spiritual. And so I want to hear a little bit about this, you know, this journey from this very kind of like traditional art form of traditional Chinese medicine to where you are today.
Yes, I'm gonna try my best to streamline this. So I'm fourth generation traditional healer. And I share that not because I want to share with folks like, oh, I'm so amazing. It's fourth generation. It's because through colonization, through immigration, through um, changing of regimes, this medicine has lived through so many of us to be able for me to practice this today. And I think it's really fucking cool. Um, but, you know, it started off as me coming here to the States back in 91. Um, and my parents wanting, of course, as like immigrants, a valid profession for all of us. And so the valid professions, right, are like engineer, accountant, lawyer, doctor, especially. And physician was something that I really identified with, even as a young girl. Like, I really wanted to be able to help heal folks. That felt very organic to me. I wanted to care and connect with people. And I grew up thinking that I was going to be a Western medical physician. And my education was all planned for that. That was the route that I was going down into. And it wasn't until I hit college and pre-med where I took a philosophy of medicine class with Dr. Markham. And he had us consider what kind of physician we actually wanted to be. And that was the first time that I had, weirdly, right? Because like this medicine has been in our family for so long, but that was the first time I thought like, okay, I can actually practice as a different type of physician, not just as a Western medical physician. And my project in that class was actually traditional Chinese medicine. And it was through that discovery of like, wait, I can get licensed in this. Like, there's a medical license for this. I can go to grad school for this. Um, and it has a lot of similarities to my family medicine. Oh, this just makes sense. And so I got my undergrad, went to grad school, got my master's, and my postdoc in traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbs, and all of that. And when I was practicing, there was this, I think that we all feel this as Eastern medical practitioners, especially because we want to be able to help more people. So we want to affirm the validity of the medicine. And so a lot of folks, especially in the schools, are taught you must be a lot more aligned to Western medicine if you want folks to take you seriously. And quite honestly, I have a lot of privilege in that because my background was in biomedicine, right? And so I knew how to talk to Western institutions. And so I worked at hospitals, I worked with Western doctors, and I did very well for myself. And I was able to speak to functional medicine we had. And this is actually where I met our mutual friend Annie, because she helped with a lot of integrative medicine, functional medicine coaching too. And that worked for a while. I liked it in that I was able to share this really beautiful traditional medicine in ways that people couldn't understand fully what the mechanism was, but I could show them from a Western point of view, and like through blood tests and through working with their doctors, like this validation of like, hey, things are shifting physiologically. This isn't just in your head. And so I enjoyed that aspect. But I also found it to be incredibly limiting because, like in Western medicine, you only really come in when you have a problem. You you end up being like a like a technician essentially. Um, and in Chinese medicine, if you really want to get to the root of an issue, you have to be able to address not just the physical, but the emotional, the energetic, and also the spiritual. And how do I even how do I even share? What folks who have started to come to me for a while notice that their physical symptoms got better, and they would continue to come to me, and they noticed that a lot of these energetic issues that they didn't realize were energetic started to shift as well. And suddenly they started to see their life change along with it. And they were like, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but you're doing something. Something's happening every time I come in here because I'm a different person in the best way possible. Um, and I feel more like myself. And I found myself holding space for so many of these patients, and these I was I had the privilege to witness so many of these shifts, and yet I couldn't speak to it because it just wasn't within the sort of how you say, like, the the idea of a physician that I was supposed to be.
Right. I think
And
that that's,
yeah,
sorry, I just
no,
wanted
no,
to
please.
share like with my experience, even of when I first was introduced to more integrative health, traditional Chinese medicine, those types of systems, um, I was still very much in the Western mindset of going to a doctor. Like I very much just came because I had symptoms that I wanted addressed. But then as I started to get things like acupuncture, I definitely noticed this thing that you're talking about, which is I felt different as a person. It wasn't just that my symptoms, and in fact, like sometimes the symptoms didn't didn't go away quickly, but I was feeling such a shift as a person that I was like, I want to keep doing this. And the thing is the symptoms didn't just get treated real quickly, like taking a pill and like, oh, I don't feel the pain anymore. It's like things were actually starting to change. And that that was such a huge shift just in my personal understanding of how the body works and how integrated it is with mind and spirit. And it actually has shaped even the way that I personally work with people in my practice. Is I tell them straight up from the beginning, I'm like, if you're here for a quick fix to a symptom, I'm not your guy. Because, like, yes, we'll look at the symptom as the thing that is bringing you here, but we're going to go beneath that and we're going to work on actually how you are being in the world so that the symptom will over time disappear because you're no longer living a life that generates that symptom versus just addressing that symptom. And that was very much like a big shift from those first times of sitting. Actually, the first time I had acupuncture was with Reagan that Annie worked with.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow. That's so profound. I think that that's so wonderful that you were able to experience that for yourself too. Because it's a little, it's challenging for me to even describe it, right? Because it sounds so like magical and out there when I'm like, yeah, we're changing your life, not just your body.
Yeah.
There's not a container to speak about it in that way. Um, and really like the best way to be able to share that with folks is to like share your own experience. So I'm very grateful that you experienced that and it shifted so beautifully and you are even able to take that wisdom and integrate it into your work. I mean, how fucking cool is that?
It's pretty fucking cool.
But like it's that kind of story that makes me want to get up in the morning and hold space for folks. Not that like, oh, look what I've done, but to be able to witness that shift, to be able to see somebody go, oh, you know what, rather than feeling uncomfortable with this thing, I want to make it go away immediately. I see them shift their relationship to it. And then there is like this ripple effect to in the rest of their life. They suddenly change the way that they relate with the world, with the way that they relate to themselves even. And then suddenly that symptom isn't even there anymore. And I mean, like you can say that acupuncture does this thing where, yes, it lowers inflammation and then it also like increases circulation. That's what we're like told to say because this is what works in Western medicine. But something has fundamentally shifted in this person where that mechanism is just one tiny factor in something so huge and profound that's just happened for this person. Anyway, thank you for speaking to that because that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And
Hmm.
so you started to discover that there was this way that you were feeling like you kind of had to be, and so what started to happen from there?
Well, this is one of those things where like I found my niche. I was very good at it. Like I could speak to both Western and Eastern, and I still do. Like I love being able to interpret and translate in that. But I found it to be incredibly limiting because in order for me to start speaking about the spiritual aspects of cultivation and healing, or even the energetic aspects or of the subtle body, um, that would effectively diminish um, my validity as my shell of a Western position, right? Like the proximity um, to whiteness in the Western institution has suddenly become a chasm because I'm talking about these esoteric things. And I didn't like feeling like I was put in a box where I could see what was happening, I could touch what was happening, and I can't even share this with the people that I'm holding space for. But to kind of fast track through this period, that was something that came up first. And then I found that as I started to grow my practice and scale, it's necessary to put systems in place. That's what happens when you scale. But when you do that, you also make things systematic and predictable, and you kind of take away like the factors that we as artists and creatives love, like showing up every day and like saying, okay, what's next? Um, it's like your next 12 hours are completely planned and you lock in 5 days a week. And you do that for 12 months out of the year, like after a while, I noticed that there were so many parts of my medicine that I wasn't able to have time for to cultivate. And I started craving that cultivative space. And there just came a time where the I don't want to call it the confines because it was such a beautiful container that I had created, but it felt suffocating after a little while. Um, and I tried to deny that that was happening for years, like, oh, I'll just take like a 2 week trip where I'm like meditating and spending time doing this. Maybe I'll do some pop-ups where I'll do a little bit of like energetic medicine over here to kind of soothe that call to dive into it. And it just wasn't enough. And when I finally got like the renewal notice for my lease, it was like, do you want to do this for another 5 years? And I'm like, uh-uh. And it was honestly the scariest thing to say no to. Like I knew in my gut that spirit was asking me to take that leap, but logically, financially, it did not make sense because things were going well. Um, people work really hard to get to that point, and you don't just leave, is what a lot of people were telling me. Um, Mostly my parents, but you take the jump and then you go, oh shit, for a little while. And then spirit catches you in some way. Like this is a fast forward throughout all of that. But there are so many aspects of my life now that I just wouldn't give up I, that I've been so privileged to witness in so many folks. And I'm just like, damn, if I were still stuck in that brick and mortar, only doing that one thing, I wouldn't be able to create as an artist. I wouldn't be able to um, cultivate, to hold space as a healer, to delve into like my own personal journey of decolonization. You know, I know that was quite sprawling. I'm very sorry. I appreciate you being patient.
This is what we're here for, is to hear your story. And the the book that came up as you talked about that in my head was, have you ever heard of the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it yet.
So this is exactly what he's talking about in the book. Is like he calls the place that you were probably at the zone of greatness, because you were really good at what you did. You weren't miserable, right? Like it sounds like there was a part of you that felt like it was suffocating, but it was like, okay, I still like what I do. I still like the people I work with, things like that. And I know that you were financially successful within it. Or I'm assuming you were. Actually. I guess I don't know that for sure, but I'm assuming you were.
It
And
wasn't
so
bad,
this
Andrew.
is, okay, good. So this is a bit of a trap that we end up in, because that zone of greatness, exactly what you said, the rest of the world's going to go, what the hell are you doing, Kathleen? Like,
Yeah.
you have a successful practice, like you're good at this, people love you. And yet there's something greater calling from within. The soul, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, is saying, hey, there's something even greater. I know this is good, but there's something even greater. And he calls that the zone of genius.
Oh,
And that's what he calls the big leap, is this transition between our zone of greatness and the zone of genius. And it usually requires some really big leap of faith where it's like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but I'm going to take the leap because I feel so called to it. And that's what really came up for me as you were describing that. It sounded like a really zone of greatness to zone of genius type of leap moment.
I really need to read this book because what you've described is, I'm not labeling myself as a genius. I'm certainly not. But I will say that like it takes, I'm gonna call it out. Like it takes a lot of balls to like leave something that's working really well. Especially when you know that it doesn't align with your spirit any longer. And yes, it is a place of privilege too to be able to say like, okay, I have enough resources to be able to make this shift. Because I also want to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of people who want to be able to do this, but they aren't resourced enough to say no to a job that works. Um,
Sure.
and so it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of convoluting it, but the thing that I want to come away with is like, yes, when you have nothing to lose, it's so much easier to say fuck it. When you have everything to lose, you're like, well, maybe, maybe we not completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely hear stories of people who even do it through the like have everything to lose moments and come out the other side. And there's books about, people just, burning it all down and saying, "Oh, I'm just going for it, even if I lose my house, even if I lose this." And at the same time, like you said, it's really important to also recognize that that's not the path for everyone. And
Yeah,
definitely don't want to demonize staying in the zone of greatness, because even those people who live in the zone of greatness, which is like, hey, I have a job that I enjoy, it provides for my family, I'm happy here. That is even a rare space for people to get to live in our world.
mhm,
Like, very few people even make it to that place where they have like a job that they actually enjoy and don't hate. So, absolutely.
for sure. And I do find that that jump it's often romanticized, especially by folks who talk about it afterwards and like, oh, it was so great. And it was so freeing and I, grew to my fullest potential. I'm gonna go on the record and say it was really fucking scary. It was not easy. It was, there were many tears. Um, there were many oh shit moments. And the thing is that like this is where your own personal niche, I feel like really comes into play. Like, do you trust spirit? Do you trust yourself and your alignment with that enough to take that jump? Because if you don't, that is absolutely going to shake you. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I worked even harder having left a job that worked me to the bone.
Yes. What do you think gave you that sense of courage for the leap?
That sense of courage. I'm. This is this is really interesting because like I don't know if it was courage as much as the realization that if I stay in a place where I feel limited or isn't aligned with my spirit, I knew that it was going to trickle down into my physical space and it was going to be unhealthy for me. And I work I work with spirit guides, and my spirit guides told me as much. And the interesting thing is that that same year that I made the decision to step away from the clinic, around January of that year, I actually lost vision in my left eye, and I still showed up to clinic and still saw people because it was far too challenging to reschedule everyone and to close down the clinic. So there was a point where I was just like, oh, I can't, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. Um, and what I found to be really interesting because was gratefully really, I was connected to really fantastic doctors who were able to run some tests do scans on me. And basically, like the guys who are at the top of their game with thyroiditis um, and autoimmune and where your eye is involved were looking at my charts and they couldn't understand what was happening. They said, this is supposed to be thyroiditis, but you don't have a family history. Um, you don't have any other presentations of autoimmune. And I remember that there was a 3 week period in which I was still showing up for clinic, and every morning I would wake up and my guides kept on telling me to paint, 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 which is to spend more time with my art. Um, and I finally listened to it. I spent 2 days almost straight just painting, um, and my eye just got better.
Yeah.
And I followed up with these fantastic physicians, and they were like, this doesn't make sense. Because if it were an autoimmune presentation, you would have at least had to like deal with this for 6 months. Like cascades don't just happen in and out like that. Um, all this to say that there were so many confirmations and affirmations from my spirit guides and from what was happening around me to show that I wasn't aligned in this space anymore. And I had to shift. And if I didn't shift, there were going to be some repercussions. And when spirit tells you that, you need to fucking listen. So I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know if bravery is as much the motivation for it as much as like, ooh.
Yeah. And thank you for making that distinction, because I do honestly think that that is where the motivation for a lot of big change does happen. Is and it was funny because even as I said, like, what gave you the courage, there was a part of me that I even wanted to like change it to actually what was the motivation, because maybe it wasn't courage, that was an assumption on my part. And I'm so happy that you gave us this piece, because very often motivation does come from the, the the understanding that the pain is going to be so great if I continue this path that it's almost like there is no choice now. Like, I must make this choice because otherwise there's going to be a great cost. And so sometimes that motivator does come from, um, not necessarily like this, how do I put it, kind of like you were saying earlier, this sort of like fuzzy, I just knew in my heart there was this greater calling and I just took the leap and it felt so good. It's like, no, I was scared shitless because I knew that something bad was coming if I stayed on this path. Like, that was a big part of my story is my voice started to disappear in 2019.
Oh,
And
whoa.
really similar thing as you is the professionals were like, dude, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, there's no reason for you to not have a voice.
Mhm.
And it was very much a like psycho spiritual, emotional, somatic thing that was happening, because my guides, my spirit, my soul was saying, hey, you're not supposed to be using your voice for
Mhm.
this particular thing anymore. Your voice belongs somewhere else. But I wasn't listening. And so my body, my soul said, well, we'll just make it so that you can't speak anymore because you need to
Yeesh.
change. Yep. So sometimes the motivation does come from like, okay, I know that this is leading towards something I don't want. Um, so as you closed your practice and started to paint, because you took like a pretty significant sabbatical, right? Where was it mostly just focused on painting and
Yes, yes. So I switched gears and went it was straight into visual art, but I do want to just touch on that distinction between fear and that motivation, or not fear, but rather like courage. The note that I want to share with that and add to is that a lot of people wait to make decisions because they want to build up the courage before they make the move. It's like that seems to be their internal confirmation that if I'm brave enough and confident enough, then I can make the step. But that's a highly romanticized point of view, I think. Many times it's like an ongoing dialogue that you have with your personal guides and with spirit and with source, because you're constantly given these sort of like uh, Sarah Beek, this fantastic author, calls them universal winks. Like this is those sort of like spiritual winks, and you got to be listening to it, because yeah, if you wait for to finally be brave, like it often doesn't show up until after you've already taken the step. So, um, yes, I'd love to redirect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I love what you just shared. It asked about the sabbatical. What was the role of that period in this transition? Is
Yes. Oh my goodness. So when I was getting really burnt out in the clinic, I started painting as a way to connect to my creativity. Because like I said, when you start scaling, you kind of like lock into a system and you don't really have enough space. You don't get the opportunity to uh, flex your creative muscles in that space. So I started doing sketches of what I would experience in my meditation. So I would meditate and I'd do watercolor sketches of whatever forms or colors that would come up through there. And that was something incredibly casual for me. And then I came in contact with this really fantastic painter. Uh, Her name is Jody King, and she is a fabulous, fabulous art educator and international artist as well. And I fell in love with her art. And I chanced upon going to one of her workshops, having never touched a canvas, having never worked with any sort of paints outside of like watercolor and a pan, on my table. And I signed up for one of her workshops. And I believe it was like the last minute. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go to this because like there are too many fires that I need to put out in the clinic, and like I gotta make sure that I'm around for this. And so I was talking myself out of it. And of course, like my parents and my partner Alan were like, no, you're going. They put me on a flight and they didn't let me do anything else. And then I ended up spending a few days with Jody, and we became really great friends. And putting paintbrush to canvas was like taking my first breath of air. It was the most invigorating, thrilling thing. Um, and there is something really beautiful about the process that she teaches to folks too, because she paints intuitively, which is the way that I feel when I work with clients, right? Like being able to use that skill of mine in a canvas and to cultivate that there so that I can come back to my sessions and to my space holding, having cultivated that, having been able to experience that in different perspectives. It was really helpful in holding space. Anyway, I made a piece. I made a very small piece while I was there, and I was like, "This is just for me. I'm not even doing this to sell anything. Nobody's gonna pay attention to this." I posted it up on Facebook because I was so excited about it. Yay, it's my first painting, and somebody was like, "I'll pay you $200 for it," and I was like, "Sold." I was like, "Really?" So I signed it. It was my first one, and it's crazy to me, but therein started like my art business. And so while I was growing that, and more people from word of mouth were like, "Oh yeah, she does like intuitive art, and this is the style that she does," and people connected with the work. I had to start taking commissions and painting until like 3 a.m. in the morning just to like be able to keep up. And so I would show up to the clinic completely tired, and on a whole bunch of caffeine to get through the day, only to like come back and then start painting again. But it was weirdly energizing for me. Like I was physically tired, but creatively, energetically, and like I noticed that even my love for holding space and connecting with folks was reinvigorated as well because of my connection with art. And that was such a huge confirmation of like, oh, okay, if I stick in this particular container, I don't get to move my energy and use and flex my muscles in a way that is helpful to these folks. Like I need to be able to have a container that also allows me to use all of these aspects of my medicine so that I can show up more fully over here. Oh,
Yeah.
right.
It sounds like it basically it puts something back in that maybe was missing for a little while, that certain type of outlet or that certain type of experience that um, even like you said woke up something again even within your practice. It actually amplified something within the practice too.
Mm.
I love that this was fueling something within your practice. And then, as we know, you had that moment of awareness and did not renew your lease. And you brought even more focus into your art, right?
Yes, yes. I I wanted to be able to experience what I could, where it would go if I put myself completely in it, where I wasn't just like moonlighting as an artist. What would it mean to me if I really like put some skin in the game? And I applied to a couple residencies, not expecting to hear back from anyone at all. And both of them accepted, invited me out. Um, so my first residency was actually in Lake Cowichan um, in Canada. And that was such a beautiful time because it was just like an art residency that was in the middle of the woods next to a lake, and I was able to paint all day outside. And that was such a beautiful nervous system regulating experience for me, especially like shifting from the everyday life in the clinic and being able to go like, okay, this is where I can like pattern my life from. Anyway, that prepared me for my Italian residency. I did a art residency in Italy, in Assisi, which I had visited many years ago, not as an artist. So it was somewhat of a full circle moment. They gave me the opportunity to paint what I experienced in sacred structures. So my job every day was to go to these beautiful cathedrals, to these crypts, to these chapels, and there are like hundreds of them, of course. I would sit and meditate where it was basically just me, candlelight, and maybe some Franciscan monks in there. It was the coolest fucking thing. And I would sketch the energy of the place. And it was really like one of the first times that I had thought about like, because I've always sketched my own meditations, but then to be able to take that perspective and start looking at uh, the things around me, the energetic structure of things around me. And interestingly enough, a lot of what I created there informs what I do now in my energy maps for folks. Um, my energy maps are a way of being able to see a person's subtle body, and to be able to share with them visually what they're experiencing. And what I really love about being able to create these maps for folks is when they see it, I get this, it never fails. There's like a moment of familiarity because like obviously it's not a portrait of them, but it is a portrait of their energy. And there's something deep that happens because they recognize themselves in it. And they're like, oh, that is what I'm feeling. Oh, that is how I'm holding myself. And these are the memories that I hold in these spaces. And anyway, all that to say it's really fucking cool.
It's really fucking cool. Yeah, I know that Michelle has gotten a chance to experience one of your energy maps, and it was profound for her to say the least. I mean, she's basically, it was part of this new path to her taking on the tattoo apprenticeship that she's going to start Monday. I mean,
So
yeah,
cool.
the the work that you are doing now is just really incredible and profound. Um, I know we need to start to wrap up today
Mhm.
because I feel like we could, this has been so fun and I feel like I could just talk to you for hours. Um, I do want just like one last little piece here. When did you know it was time to transition from this space of like the sabbatical where you were studying to actually inviting people in to work more with them again? It was, yeah, like, how did you know that it was time to step back in?
That's so interesting. Um, wow, I haven't even considered that yet because it feels so recent to me. So last year, I started getting, well, I had continued to do like pop-ups with clients that I had worked with for like a decade. I'm not just gonna tell them, sorry, I'm not seeing you anymore. And so I was still seeing folks for like follow-ups and every once in a while. And there were quite a number of them that were coming in with I I don't want to call them spiritual issues, but like something like acupuncture and Western medicine just couldn't touch. But I knew had space for in my with energetic medicine. Um, and so it happened often enough for me to go like, okay, maybe this is something that I need to revisit because I used to do a lot more medical qigong earlier in my career, but I stopped doing it because it was so physically taxing for me and so energetically taxing that I didn't feel like it was healthy for me. Anyway, I actually moved back into it reluctantly because I wasn't sure how my energetic body would react. Um, and I maybe started on a couple folks, and then it just organically took off from there. Very much, it felt serendipitous, just like in the way that I started my painting too. I was obviously being asked to hold space in a very specific way, and I listened to spirit and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do this. If this is what you want me to do, I'll do it, but I want it to be sustainable. Um, and my experience with it this time around was completely different. While in the past it might have drained me, now it feels even more energizing. Like it 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 gives me life, truly.
So, in a lot of ways, it wraps us back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is this trust and just the natural flow of process. So there wasn't these like real specific, clear guideposts that you came across. You're like, oh, okay, it's time to start working with people again. It happened naturally and organically, and it happened because you have that connection with source spirit, your inner wisdom, and you just followed it. So when it came up, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I follow that path, which I really like this because I've heard this pattern in a lot of people's stories, and I see it in my own story, that often we're looking for these like really pinnacle moments where it's like, yeah, this is it. This is the time. And while I have had a few of those that were like really marker moments, I can definitely look at my experiences and go, a lot of where I'm at today is just going with these winding roads that you described in the beginning as the path.
100%. And I love the way you describe that because, like, even as you say this, like, this is what I um, admire so much about yours and Michelle's relationship because you both have such good communication. And that is also something that I strive to have with my higher self and spirit, like one with my partner, of course. And that's something that we work hard on and we hold space for. But I don't think that we ever consider that in terms of like source, spirit, and divine, or even like our spirit guides, right? Like we think that we get one edict and then, okay, I'm gonna follow that rule for the rest of my life. But you don't really do that with a partner either, right? Like You agree to be in a relationship together and you work towards goals together. And similarly, like where that takes you is going to change. Like, but you're in it together. And that's really like, that's the niche of it all for me.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I knew that this was going to be a great conversation from the very beginning, and I'm so just grateful for you taking time and not just time but energy and heart to really feed into this community that I'm building. And so uh, of course I talked about how they can connect with you and stuff in the intro, but what type of work would they potentially connect with you on at this point?
There are two main ways to walk with me, and the first is through my Patreon, and this is a general community in which I publish weekly. We talk about the energetic flow of the collective, how you can show up for it, how you can work with it rather than against it. And I find that to be really helpful for anybody who is in a career in which you're holding space for yourself and other folks, really, because then you know how to show up more resource for yourself and others. And the second way that one can work with me is one-on-ones. I hold energy alignment sessions for folks. During a session, we do deep energy work, and I literally draw out your energy map. And this this is a representation of your energetic body, the themes and messages that are coming through that are in play essentially. And we talk about themes that are ready to shift. Or dissolve or to bring in. And we integrate all of that together in a call afterwards to ensure that you're not just, hey, this is what's happening with you. Great. What the fuck do I do with it? Like I want people to be able to walk away with integrated wisdom, like practical wisdom that they can actually put to work immediately so that it benefits them.
I love it. Kathleen, I'm so grateful that Annie connected us way back because I just have really enjoyed all the incredible resources you even just post to your social media. I have enjoyed the banter back and forth that we have had just through little direct messages and voice messages. Um, and you have already had a pretty profound effect on my family's life. So I'm just so incredibly grateful to to this connection.
I'm thankful for you, Andrew. Really, it's such an affirmation to hear these things, and it gives me so much joy to connect with you and Michelle so much because, like you shared, I, I may have had an effect in your family, but you and your wife have had such a profound effect on me too, and so much of it has given me the courage and space to take up more visibility and to be even further aligned uh, in my work. And I can't, I can't even put it into words right now. You're gonna have to edit this out because like the main feeling that I get is just like this, my cup is so full when I think of the both of you. And I thank you because even witnessing the love that you have for each other and the respect and communication that you all hold for each other, um, that makes me want to mirror that too with my partner. And so you just being you, thank you.
Fully received it. Thank you, Kathleen. Mm. Well, I guess we have to stop at some point because, I actually have another guest I have to record here in a few minutes. But
Oh my gosh, I'm
otherwise,
so
I would just
sorry.
want to keep talking and keep talking. But yes, thank you. And I think that's it. I think that's all we need to say is thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew.